Hi there. My name's Heather, and this is Ankara's Book Club. I wanted to talk to you today about a really cool book that I read recently. Um, One of my favorite things is to read while I travel. I find that the alchemy of the book and the place that I'm going to, it just creates this experience around like a narrative or a backdrop to my experience. So I can often tell you the book I was reading in that place when I was traveling overseas or when I was going through something. The next book I want to talk about is one that I found intriguing. I was reading it on my way to Mongolia, where I wanted to really understand the roots of shamanism and the expression that they have over there and how they use it. And I found this book and I ordered it, and it was more in depth than I thought it was going to be. And it wasn't, I don't think I know what I expected, but it blew my expectations apart to the point where I found I had to digest it in parts because it was so interesting. And there were so many different factors that really helped me to understand my craft. So the book is A Journey into the World of Spiritual Healing and Shamanism. It's called Healing States. It's a PhD by two authors, Alberto Villoldo and Stanley Krippner. So these two authors, as a PhD, over in South America, went to study and sit in on many different shamanic cultures and many different styles of spiritual healing. I didn't know such things were still practiced, to be honest. Different subset groups. I could see the mirrors of shamanism in all of them, but obviously their own unique expression. I've spent a bit of time over in South America, so I had a cultural backdrop in my mind to how these things would work, and I could really see that they could be accepted in that part of the world in the way that they were bringing them. And it made me understand that, so much of this is still alive in so many places. And actually, part of that made me feel very sad because sometimes I feel like it's not accessible enough in Australia. And our very lack of culture or confusion about our culture can really get in the way of us accessing ancient culture, ancient healing modalities, ancient Aboriginal, Indigenous links to our healing that are so profound. So some very cool things I learned from this book. He told stories, or they go in with a team and they're really there to do research. That's why it's a PhD. They're doing research, they're observing and they're witnessing. And they witnessed some incredible things. They went into particularly a couple that I'll talk about that I thought were just mesmerizing. But a couple of groups, I think they would be considered religious, spiritual groups. I think here we really only have Christianity to really compare it to, but it would be like walking into a church with a certain group of Christians and seeing them express it in certain ways and how they heal each other. Many accounts of mediumship and how people achieve that, and the groups of people that are trained in mediumship, and then often they're offering mediumship healing to people that walk in that drastically need help. And they're always doing it in groups, which was really interesting, where I think over here we're more disciplined to one-on-one healing or practitioner style healing, a bit more doctor-patient type scenarios. This was really like walking into a church and everyone in there is a shaman or a healer, and really having that point of contact and it being expressed in its fullest form. So there's a lot in here about how different groups go into trance, how they achieve mediumship, how it works. Very interesting for me as a practicing shamanic practitioner. One of the ideas I really loved was they went and observed this group of people in this healing center that was dealing with complex mental health issues, schizophrenia, bipolar, trauma, PTSD. We don't have within our system much of a support network for healing these things very well. Our system medicates only, really. There's not, in my experience, true healing that's accessible to people unless they go privately. Now, the interesting factors about this was there's many people in the healing center, which I think promotes community. The requirement of the healing center is that the person that needs healing must come with a family member or a friend on the basis of we are all affected by each other's illnesses. When someone in your family is ill or unwell, we all feel it. We are all in it somehow. And this leader and this healer would argue that if we're going to heal, we need connection and we need love and we need someone there. And he actually teaches the family member how to go into mediumship so that that family member can start to heal, extract, understand, and go into a state that is open and receptive to understanding that person's condition and illness to help it transform. And I think that's incredible. I think that has such power to it. So in this center, they are living well out in nature, fed well, there with support, interacting. There's no cages or locked doors or anything like that. It's really like a healing center, a recovery center. Maybe the closest we would have that here is private rehab, something like that. But he's taking unwell people into these non-ordinary states to help them meet their disease. And he's taking their family members into that state too, so they can understand from the inside out what they're dealing with. I thought that was just profound. And they go in with their group and they experience and they witness and they watch. And sometimes they're worked on too, and sometimes they go into a state, their team. Very, very cool. And it changed my view of mental health. And I can see so many of those parameters that would really help and get people towards comprehensive healing. We know for complex issues that there might not be a fix, actually. There might be fulfilling levels of management. I think our symptoms, our patterns, our ancestry can be a gifting in many ways so that we keep on pursuing wellness, keep on pursuing life, working through our karmic patterns, working through what we're here to understand. It takes us completely away from this model that we're here to just exist or to work or to, you know, I think the depth of that healing can be a pathway and we can do it together, and it's never going to be perfect, but some of the paradigms of thought in that are really profound, I believe, and probably risky too. You know, it's risky for these healers and these leaders to do such things. The other situation, which I found mind-boggling, I remember putting down the book after I read it and saying to my partner, like, can you believe this? And I think he said, no, I can't. So there's this other group of healers and mediums that open their doors and heal many people. And one specific story was, and this happens a lot, so channels or people that are channeling or mediums or mediumship in our world is generally someone is allowing a spirit into their body to do work or to say things or to recognize people or whatever it is. That can be, it comes with its own risk factors. But one of these people was channeling an old doctor that was in the war. So the human is channeling a doctor that is now deceased, and that doctor is used to working in pretty rash situations, dire situations. And if you can imagine, a surgeon in the war is really just doing what he needs to do, and they don't have time for anesthetic and sometimes not even cleanliness. But he was channeling this doctor, and he was making physical cuts in his patients. So people would come in for healing. Maybe they had tumors, maybe they had diseases, maybe they had things that need to be cut out. And this medium was physically doing these cuts. And the interesting part was he was using a scalpel that was never washed. So they talk a lot about the belief system of them channeling God, essentially, and that this scalpel could remain dirty. Nobody contracted a disease. Nobody bled out. And he was slicing the body and pulling things out, tumors, and working in flesh, then sewing people up. No anesthetic. For one, these people were being cut open with no anesthetic. And because they believed in what the mediums were doing, and they believed in their connection to source and to God, nothing, no disease, nothing, there was no ramifications of this. I think this is so interesting, the power of our belief systems. And when we believe, it obviously means that they believe in that belief system and that sense of healing and whatever spirit they're connected to. But I found that profound, that this guy was doing surgery after surgery, and it is a psychic surgery in a way, but he's doing physical surgery with a dirty scalpel, and he never had any adverse reactions. And those people were being cut open while they weren't under anesthetic, and they were wide awake, and they were telling their group. So their group is just interviewing them and witnessing and seeing it with their own eyes. They're telling that group, it didn't hurt. I couldn't feel it. It felt quite lovely, actually. It felt quite gentle. Hey, lovelies. If you're resonating with this content, don't forget to like it and subscribe to the channel. It really helps us out, helps out the channel, helps us to make beautiful content for you all. Don't forget to comment down below too if you want to share your experiences, ask us a question, and send in some requests. We'd love to know what you want more videos about. Once again, thank you for watching, and we love you all so much. So I want to make a point around, it doesn't actually matter if you believe in that or not. I think reading about it and considering it and trying to understand it is important for our own sense of belief in healing and what is actually possible. Now, I don't think these things would fly in Australia, I'm not sure, but profound healing and miracles do happen, particularly when the space is trusted and there's faith. And I've seen this in shamanism across the world as well. It really works when people honor and believe in the shamans in their community, and they believe in what they're doing and they align with it. One of the most frustrating things about being a practitioner is when you're trying to help someone, but they're stuck on the belief system. They're stuck on trust and faith. They don't want to let that in. They don't want it to be about energy. They don't want it to be about past lives. They don't want it to be about contracts. They don't want it to be about repressed emotions. They don't want it to be about any of that. They want it to be about science, which is, there's nothing you could have done. We're going to cut it out. then you'll be right. But when it's not like that, and a lot of the times it's not, diseases and illnesses are not like that. They're not cut and dry. They have an emotional component, a physical component, and a spiritual component. And throughout my career, I've gone very much more heavily into the emotional and the spiritual component because I think it's not very well addressed. I never say to someone, don't go to the doctor. I say, go to the doctor. Hopefully you get a great one. Listen to the scientific basis of what your disease is telling you. And then we're going to have to look into your emotional patterns around it. Then we're going to have to address the spiritual components. There are spiritual components that your soul is talking to you about here. If you want comprehensive healing, the type of healing where you can be free of your symptoms, of the physical threats, then we have to go for all three components. And it takes work. It's very confronting to look at the emotional patterns behind our diseases. We have to go back into our events, into our past, into our trauma, the things we don't want to look at, the discomfort that we stash and we stay hidden. We don't want to look at the spiritual component that our soul may have chosen this for us, because without it, we won't learn and we won't grow and we won't go into the discomfort. We don't want to be weak. We don't want to be vulnerable. We don't want to go to the doctor. We don't want to do any of these things. But this book really opens up that we can have wellness and healing in many different forms. And if you believe in the spiritual parts of our lives and our disease, then we can unlock healing of a spiritual nature. I found out a long time ago that I can work on people's bodies day in, day out, but if I don't change their belief systems, if I don't move through a barrier in the mind, then they'll just keep on coming back. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was taught that a good practice should be people come back for years. That's what brings us money and stable work. And I thought, I don't want anyone to come back for years. I want them to move through something and never have to see me again. That's what I want. So we need to change our belief systems. We need to change our emotional patterning. We need to understand what our body needs. We need to know that there's a spiritual component. Now, the spiritual component could be that disease or that illness sets you on a tangent that you would not have been on without that level of weakness and vulnerability. Maybe you would have been going towards an outcome that actually doesn't help you to learn and grow. And we naturally go that way. Our ego makes that so. We go towards like, well, this is safe, and then I'll get that thing, and then I won't have to look at it, and I'll be safe and comfortable. But healing asks us to be uncomfortable. It says you're here for more than just staying on top of things. You know, you're here to learn and to grow and to evolve. And we do that through adversity. So this really opens up parameters of spiritual healing and how important it is. I always go for comprehensive. So like they were doing in the mental health healing center, it is about connection. It is about community. It is about nutrition. It is about resolving family issues. It is also about spiritual components of disease. It is also about therapy and work on the mental plane and understanding our emotions. It is also about science and understanding genetics and predispositions. It is also about changing ancestral patterns. And the people I work with now, particularly when they're on top of all of that, they very rarely get sick. They very rarely get big illnesses. I'm talking about the wonderful students that are adopting a shamanic life, that are on top of their awareness, their emotions, they're moving through challenges and understanding that if we are in alignment and we speak to our soul often and we help or we ask for help from our spiritual realm and we feel our emotions and we express them and we let them go through us and we don't stash them and hold them and we do the therapy and we do the work and we show up to ourselves and we look after ourselves even when we don't want to, then sometimes we don't need drastic illnesses to teach us, but then sometimes in this lifetime, that is what will serve us the most. So having that hugely multi-dimensional view was what this book helped me to understand, that, you know, this stuff really creates results for people. Mediumship is a difficult job, a very healing role, very much shunned in our society, but can provide people so much healing. And spiritual healing is important, profound sometimes, just absolutely profound. And I know in my work that when you don't get a good response from the doctor, when we can't fix everything with nutrition, or when you don't know what emotions you're stashing because you don't actually feel them anymore, the spiritual component can unlock all of that first so that you feel divinely connected again, so that you can then speak to your higher self about, what nutrition do we need through this? This is big. And like, how do I get through that next part? And what do I need now? Because I've never experienced this emotion before, or this loss, or this anger, or this resentment, or this bliss. So I find opening people back up to their higher self, to speak to that divine higher dimensional frequency, so they can look after themselves better. It's frustrating to go to the doctor and think, no, it's not just that. Oh, I don't want that. Or you're not listening to me. Or to go to therapy and unlock it all, but then to feel that that's not all of it. We then work on the energetic plane, the spiritual plane, that and it's a whole other realm. I've found it's a whole huge realm within itself. We can unlock and release pressure valves and change our perspectives and grow our mind and our consciousness around, like, whoa, maybe I've been playing this pattern out for lifetimes. Maybe this is less about that I've done something wrong and more about finding a space to work with this alchemy and actually listening to what my body is telling me about my environment, about my ancestry, about my gifts, about where I need to go for my soul's evolution, and where I believe I could go through this pathway. So hugely expanding book for me. I think their work in the world is really important. So much though that I actually bought another copy, and I left a copy over in Mongolia in a hostel, because I kind of like, when I'm called to book drop or book swap, I feel like there's presence in that, and someone will pick it up one day and maybe it'll change their life. Or, you know, if we could see the trail of a book and its time, and, you know, when it's get tea spilt on it, and who corners the pages, and who has a bookmark, and who's crying on it, I think, oh, it's so beautiful. And I love leaving books in places and swapping, and I really love this work, and I love this book club. So thank you for joining me here. And comment below. I'd love to hear what you're reading. Please suggest books for me. I would absolutely love that. Send me your recommendations, put it in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you believe in books, and you believe in books changing your life, and you want knowledge to get out there, and you love what we do, let us know. And I'd love to hear from you all. Thank you so much. I love you all so, so much. Bye.